Vandalism rears its ugly head again, and this time it's going to have an overarching effect on many Ugandans. Good morning, you are watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Bruno Edgard. Now, Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by P.R.O Hotel in Tebe. Please make a reservation and booking early if you want to enjoy the festivities at P.R.O Hotel in Tebe during the Christmas season. But as we gear up for the Christmas season, the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited has told us, as well as the minister has told us, that when it comes to electricity, we are looking, especially for Kampala metropolitan area, we are looking at some few days of load shedding because of vandalism. Towers, transmission lines that have been vandalized, and this is going to hamper business, it's going to hamper the health sector as well, and it's going to hamper life as we know it. But this problem needs to come to an end. Now, we are discussing this issue today with Mr. Solomon Kuyita, who is the Principal Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. Welcome back to Issues at Hand.
Thank you, and glad to be here once again.
And you seem to be a prophet, because the last time you were here, we touched on this problem very slightly, and at that time, it's something that a lot of Ugandans have not been focusing on, because usually when it comes to vandalism, you see things like the wires on electricity poles, things that can be replaced easily. But now, this is very costly, because it's very costly to replace these towers, and it's going to see us have a little bit of load shedding. But before we go there, please remind us, when it comes to electricity, all issues dealing with electricity, what is the mandate of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development?
Well, the ministry's mandate is to manage energy and mineral resources in the country sustainably and in a way that it generates economic development of the country. So we do the exploitation, we oversee the productions, we oversee the utilization, the sustainable utilization of these resources across the country. That's what we do on a daily, and it's our duty to see that the country has adequate power, and we are also getting the mineral resources out of the ground, getting them refined or value added, and then we get the maximum resources we can get out of them to help this country develop. That's what we do on a daily.
Fantastic. And specifically for electricity, what is the ministry's role?
Electricity, our duty, we are in charge of the policy as a ministry, but the policy is to ensure that every Ugandan gets power, or Uganda gets the energy it requires to industrialize, to make, really, it all comes down to making money, but we want to make sure that every Ugandan is connected to power wherever they are, and that's the wider agenda, but also to make sure that we have electricity resources in abundance, because investors out there need to be sure that when we go to Uganda, we invest, we are not going to get these interruptions, power cuts, or inadequate power. The network has to be reliable, the power has to be affordable, and has to be available. So we ensure that it's accessible, reliable, and affordable. Those three things are our major areas of focus, and that's what gives the investors confidence to come here.
And we shall get into the accessibility later on. But let us start with the problem of vandalism. So what is the situation on ground, especially when it comes to the latest stint of vandalism in Mukono, and which areas have been affected?
For quite some time we've had this problem, but the scale has not been why, it wasn't on a large scale. So we had incidents, in various places. Sometimes The larger one was people stealing power. You know, those illegal connections, someone tapping a line without a meter. Those ones have been there, and you know, we've been employing technology, different technologies to ensure that we curb that sort of. Remember, we came from the UEB meters, then you know the first year cars, second year cars. We are about on the fourth, but we try to improve on the technology to ensure that people who steal power do not have. We've even changed the cables, you know, to the insulated cables, partly for safety, but also to make it hard for people to do the direct tapping. You know, you've been to places where people, you know, would put a stone on a cable, then they just throw it over, and they connect. There's something we used to call suicide. You know, it's called suicide because it is highly dangerous. It can cause massive. It can kill instantly if you're not so careful with that kind of system. But away from that, then we started getting people vandalizing transformers. Some people started taking transformer oil. I don't know. They take it somewhere, maybe there is market somewhere. Then it graduated to people stealing the actual transformers, unscrewing it and carrying it away. And that then it graduated also to people taking distribution lines. Those are the lines that bring power to our homes, you know, the common cables that are a bit low level. And now it is growing into cutting those big wires on pylons or towers, the ones that we know take electricity very far. They carry power from the stations from the power dams to the substations. The distributors pick from the substations and distribute wherever it is required. So the vandals are now targeting those big installations, and that is quite worrisome to all of us, because you can imagine in a place called Chivuvu in Mukono, in one night on Saturday, these vandals cut down 4 towers. 4. These are huge, you know, huge pylons. They are high up and the cables are heavy, and the distance between one tower and another is quite long. But 4 of them, they were put down onto the ground, you know, and they take the cables. Sometimes they take the actual metal, you know, that they immobilize. There is a way they work very fast and they take. So, as if that was not enough, the following day, they go to another village and they put down another tower at Nasut village in Mukono. They put down another tower. So these were 2 lines affected, one coming from Nalubale Dam and another one coming from Kira Dam. So those lines left us with no power. One was carrying power to a substation in Mukono, another one to Lugogo here. Now this is the power that supplies most of central Uganda. So in a minute, you don't have power. So our engineers had to work very fast because we have a loop, a line that links Jagali to Jinja, to the Owen Falls. But these lines carry a certain capacity, because each of the lines carries a maximum of 150 megawatts, but the Bujagali one carries 220 megawatts, because Bujagali alone produces up to 250 megawatts. So that line also picks the power from Isimba. Now we had to resort to using that one line, getting part of the Jinja power into Bujagali, into Isimba, one line. serving us, or because it comes up to Kawanda, then Kawanda somehow supplies the rest of the central. But of course, it is one line. It has a maximum capacity. It cannot carry all the power we require or all the power we produce. So that had to result into load shedding in various parts of central Uganda and western Uganda until the problem gets fixed. So luckily, Uganda Electricity Transmission Company had some spares, so they were able to do a temporary connection of the line where one tower was put down. So that one is back on, and they are working around the clock to do a temporary arrangement for the other line where 4 towers were put down, so that we can have our power back on by Friday. We do the permanent structures. The towers have to be put up again. The temporary infrastructure cannot hold for a long time, and still they can come back and vandalize that too. So it's a big problem, and this is a well-coordinated, systematic criminal act. We are trying to work with security, army, police, because we are looking at it also as some sort of sabotage, economic sabotage. It could even be a security threat for this country, because imagine most of the infrastructure that runs the administration of this country is in the central here. So when someone turns off power, they want so many things to be out of use. The cameras on the streets, the security systems in the country, and so on. So we want to look even beyond the theft. We want to think that these people are up to something else, bigger than just stealing of wires.
There might be a bigger motivation as well.
Yeah, so that's why we are going to be working closely with security, the intelligence system of the country, and we get to the bottom. Who are these people?
Before we get to that,
yes.
Going back to the areas that will be affected, so which specific areas, because it has been mentioned Kampala metropolitan area, but which specific areas within then are going to be affected in terms of load shedding?
The areas are quite many. Umeme put out a list because the distribution network, the wider distribution network is managed by Umeme, but also the Uganda Electricity Distribution Company. They put out a list, but generally speaking, I want to say central Uganda and western Uganda. These are many districts affected. Central Uganda, you could think about most of the Uganda districts, plus most of the western Uganda districts. These are many. These are quite many. But the good news is now that the other temporary arrangement on one of the lines is, was at least done by yesterday, actually on Sunday night. Before Monday morning, we were able to fix that. No, before Tuesday. It was done on Monday night because it was vandalized on Sunday and fixed on Monday. The teams have been working around the clock. So we are able to reconnect. We have a deficit of about 104 megawatts. So
on that, are there other alternatives? For instance, we heard of the alternative of the Namave thermal plant.
Yes, the Namave was switched on, but it is what we call expensive power, because it runs on diesel, and as we all know, diesel is quite expensive lately. So you're not going to get it any cheaper from anywhere. So a unit of from the diesel from Namambe is almost 20 times the price. Is almost 20 times more than the unit from the thermal plant. So you cannot afford to run that system for a very long time. That is why we are even trying to do the temporary temporary constructions of these lines to make sure that the power can continue. You know, they have to do some bit of poles, the wooden poles as the temporary measures before the metallic ones or the concrete towers are put up, so that we don't give people the expensive power, because the expensive power would hurt almost everyone. We want to keep Namave on standby as an emergency, system. It is just for so. And UETCL told us yesterday that 1 week, just a week of that disruption makes us lose 4 billion shillings in, these tariffs people pay. So if you don't have that power for 1 week, you lose 4 billion shillings. So you can see the extent of the problem. And replacing the vandalized towers, those 5, each one is at a cost of about over 200 million shillings. So that is 1 billion shillings you're going to dedicate towards just replacing what was vandalized. So it's quite a costly venture. This disruption is so big. We want Ugandans to understand the extent of this problem so that they can work with the government. They can notify us when they see some movement that is suspicious in their areas, because these lines run through communities. There are people who are able to see some activity near a line. Of course, when they are working, they will turn on some bit of lighting. They come with power source. So you're going to hear someone cutting something in the bush or near your home, in the gardens where these lines are passing. You should be able to contact police. At least call 999.
Is it because, and maybe that's part of the problem, is it because the public is not aware? Because in my head, I know there are some people who might have heard and might have thought that it was maintenance that was being worked on when it comes to the transmission.
Yeah, that is a possibility. Lines. It is the reason we want to create this awareness in the public. Because usually when there is some maintenance work to be done on a line, we inform the public. Because maintenance work comes with disruptions of service. So we have to announce that we are going to do maintenance on this line. So the following areas are going to be out of supply. But where you've not had any announcement of that sort, it should be suspicious. But I think we need to even move from that and tell the public. We even provided a toll-free line, which I'm going to give to the public. If you see any sort of suspicious activity on a power line, it could be maintenance, it could be theft. For you, do your part. Notify. You can call the companies. Umeme, we know the Umeme number at least, because we are always calling Umeme to come and fix or restore power. You can call Umeme. But UETCL has a number, Electricity Regulatory Authority, ERA, has a number, a hotline, which is 0200 50 60 00. 0200 50 60 00. Or just report to the nearest police, because we know at least we have police near us. We know a number. Or you just call 999. You say there is some activity. It is late in the night. We don't think it is normal maintenance. There is some activity which is suspicious in this area. Please check it out. And the teams, when you make this phone call, the systems are activated immediately, and there is someone in charge of that area. They will certainly move quickly with security to make sure that it is something known to the system, to the sector. Otherwise, if the suspicious characters, they are going to be dealt with decisively. We want to thank, one community that has taken, after being disturbed for some time. They are residents of Chamujundo village in Kakumiro. They got someone vandalizing their transformer, and the community mobilized and they arrested the guys. They arrested them with the transformer because their power just suddenly went off, and they said, what is the problem? And they mounted their own community operation led by the LC chairman of the area. And they arrested the guys and handed them over to police. That is the kind of vigilance we want in the communities out there. Otherwise, we are undoing what Uganda is really struggling to put in place.
And on the vandals, how, according to investigations and from what you've seen in the past as a ministry, how do these vandals operate, and how do they operate, and who are the perpetrators for some who have been caught? Especially, I ask this because it seems like this is an inside job, because these are people who know if they can do that in one night, 5,000 one night, then these are people who know how to operate, who know how to bring down these lines, and that means they have experience in this.
Our suspicion is the people involved in this trade or in this criminal activity are not ordinary people. They are certainly people who know they know the systems inside out. They could be people from around who have previously worked with these companies. We know that so many worked with the companies at one point. We all live in these communities, and we know they are the so-called camufos in the communities. These are former workers of either UEB or UMEME, or they are UMEME contractors, or they are former workers of the rural electrification. We want to believe that the criminals are engaging such people, because the criminal may have the intention but may not have the expertise, but could hire some of these people and utilize them. So investigations have, of course, over time we've been arresting a number of camufos, and when you check, they worked with one of those companies, and they lost their jobs probably because of those same bad manners. Because in the companies also, that they are, these people that come and they are asking for money, they are trying to extort here and there. So such people lose their jobs. But because they still want to survive, they can continue engaging in criminal activity. But most importantly, we want to go aggressive. We want to make sure that arrests are made and people get prosecuted.
Is it that the sanctions are not harsh enough? Because this is a problem, like you mentioned, that has continued to persist. Where is it going wrong? Is it that people are not arrested? Like you said, is it that the community protect some of these vandals? Is it that because the law is there, because according to the Electricity Amendment Act of 2022, the sanctions are very clear, they are tough. 1 billion as a fine or 12 years imprisonment. I think that should be harsh enough. So why is it that they have so much confidence to carry out such vandalism?
One, for people, many people see the communities tend to look at this as there are crimes we call victimless crimes. So maybe when someone hears that there was a vandalization somewhere, for as long as they are not affected directly, they don't.
Or a human being is not affected
directly, especially, for instance, now two major lines were put down, but UETCL was able to fix one of them in a day. So when power is restored, you may be a resident of Gaba or Kawempe or Gayaza. So you're going to say, okay, power went off yesterday, but today is back. So then it is not your problem. So we call that victimless crime. People don't really feel the pinch. But I want to tell you, the public, that the pinch, you're going to feel it in your pocket, because every time the Electricity Regulatory Authority announces a tariff rise, whenever the tariff goes up, because all these things get back into the cost of power, getting power to your house. When the 1 billion I talked about replaced the 5 towers, and I talked about the 4 billion, just the loss we get in a week of darkness, all that cost is going to be put back into the cost of getting power to your house. So in every quarter, the Electricity Regulatory Authority is going to announce that the tariff is this. Not so many years ago, that tariff was in the regions of 200 shillings. As we speak, it is about 750. Come the beginning of the next quarter, the new tariff is going to be announced. So that is how you feel it. That's how it affects you.
And what's the projection for the new tariff, if you have
of course, they have a number of considerations they make. When the dollar goes up, it contributes. When vandalization happens, all those, how much they are going to put into replacements, into expansion of the networks, into servicing of the networks. So they have to calculate all these things. The interest rates of the banks, because the investors get facilities from banks. So all these things are compounded. I can't say for now, because they are economists at ERA that communicate to the companies, and then they will make a cost which is not so, which is reasonable in the circumstances. But what a Ugandan out there needs to know is that whenever a lot of vandalization activity takes place of the infrastructure, the costs are going to be built into the tariffs. So even you, who has not been affected by this problem, because we say this problem affected largely central Uganda and western Uganda. You may be somewhere in the north or eastern Uganda. Maybe your power didn't even, trip. When the new tariff is put out, it is going to affect you too. So we need to handle this as a country. We need to target lowering the tariff, and we need to contribute by protecting the infrastructure in our area. because these lines go through people's, lands. We secure what we call way leave. We get permission from you to pass the line in your land. But it should also be your responsibility to ensure that people don't just trespass on your land to come and do illegal activity. Just make it your contribution to this country, that whenever I see suspicious people walking onto my land, at least I should call police. That there are people I don't understand who are doing one activity on the power line in my plot. At least make it your duty to inform the authorities, and that's how we are going to take on this problem squarely.
Definitely, and that's to us, members of the public. But when it comes to the ministry, what are you doing to curtail this problem of vandalism?
One, there is a committee, there is a multi-sectoral committee that the minister has put in place. It has ministries such as Defense and Veterans Affairs, which is in charge of the security agencies. We have the Ministry of Trade, because our initial investigations are to the effect that the scrap dealers, the steel industry, these are the people purchasing the material from the vendors, because they steal the material and sell them somewhere. So the people buying these, we also want them to be regulated. If you're running a steel farm, a steel company, we should have a system to monitor where do you get your material. Are you just going to get anything and everything and just use it to run your business? Because then people will start stealing other people's, even cars, and then they take them there because they have a big amount of steel in them. So we want to regulate that industry, scrap industry. What is scrap? Maybe we also need to define scrap. Because scrap cannot be, you cannot see a wire, a cable which is ordinarily up on the poles. You see it and you say this is scrap. It can't be scrap. Yeah, so they should be. That's why we are making the penalties hefty. If we get you with material stolen from electricity infrastructure, the fine is big. The first time we get you, we charge you 1 billion shillings. That money could affect the operations of these companies. We charge you. The next time we get you, it is 2 billion shillings. And it could also be the money, and it could also be imprisonment. So the managers of these companies could go to jail, but also the companies would be, fined. These would have to pay these hefty fines. Some of them might even close. So we are trying to make these deterrence steps to make sure that the problem goes away. But this multi-sectoral committee has also security agencies, ISO, CMI, police, the army, and so on. Also, the companies are there because we want to keep meeting regularly, comparing notes. Where is the problem? Where is it? What is happening? Minister of Trade will give us a list of these companies, and probably security has to embed someone in each of these companies to confirm what sort of raw materials are they getting. Because then the camera system, are we able to know what comes in? If there is a company if we see trucks entering a certain company at night, what sort of material are you bringing in at 3 a.m.? What is it? Okay? And then we can trace back that truck. Did it come from the borders into the country? Where is it coming from? So we need to regulate. Probably we should put in place a regulation to the effect that even before raw materials get in, someone should check. Because the scrap, we know the scrap. There are people that buy scrap from our communities. Broken saucepans, kettles, or what. But if you see a tower, because we all know these electric metallic poles, we know them. So when we see something similar to what comes from that, we should just impound and know that these are the people. And then we make them pay the fines. We need to work with the judiciary to make sure that Ugandans are not losing.
Definitely. Vandalism continues to be a very big problem in this country, and the latest stint with 5 towers transmission towers being vandalized means that for about a week or so, many regions, that's 2 regions then here in central Uganda and in western Uganda as well, are going to be affected in the name of load shedding. And it's very interesting that like our guest said, that when it comes to the way these vandals operated, especially this latest stint of the towers in Mukono, it's very interesting. They must have had the manpower, because they must have had different teams for different towers, and then the fact that they had the confidence to do it with the time that was available to them, that means they also had financial resources in terms of trucks. So there is much more behind the curtain that we can see, but our prayer is that moving forward, the ministry and other authorities will deal with this issue so that it doesn't hamper our enjoyment and our usage of electricity. But one of the things that our guest, that's Mr. Solomon Kuyita, Principal Public Relations Officer of Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, spoke about was about the mandate of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development when it comes to accessibility of electricity. So tell us, Mr. Solomon, how are we doing when it comes to power supply across the country?
Well, over time we've been able to develop the generation capacity of the country. We have at least 5-6 major generators. We have the 2 at Jinja. We have Nalubale, which gives us 200 megawatts. Chira, which gives us 180. Altogether is 380. We have Isimba, which gives us 183 megawatts in Kayunga. We have Ujagali, which gives us 250 megawatts. Now, on top of that, we are adding, I think early next month, we shall be launching Karuma. Karuma is going to give us 600 megawatts, but we are going to launch it in phases, so it will be at full supply by June next year, giving us 600 megawatts. But on top of that, we have quite a number of privately run facilities in different parts of the country, giving us 10 megawatts, 8, 6, what, the likes of Kakira Sugar and the like. So altogether we have 1,276 megawatts available for this country. And as we speak, Uganda is yet to consume more than 800 megawatts. So we have power in excess at the moment. So that's why we are able to export some power to Kenya, 50 megawatts, because we are exporting the excess. We are also putting up a line to Tanzania. There's a line to Rwanda. We are putting up a line to Burundi, a line to DRC, and a line to South Sudan. So these are projects happening, but also when we construct these big transmission lines, we are setting up substations in different parts of the country. The substation is some sort of pool. So the transmission line will bring power and deposit it in a pool. And we want them to be interlinked so that when one transmission line goes off, still you have power in the pool. You just know that maybe I had so many megawatts, but it is less by so many. But at least I'm able to keep the people with power, although we can ration it until the problem is fixed, but people don't completely lose power. That is what we are doing. So from the substations, we do distribution networks. The transmission network is 3,431 kilometers at the moment, and we are targeting to grow that number as we find resources to construct more and extend. We are trying to extend power to Arua. For the longest time, Arua has never been on the national grid. They've been relying on a diesel generator run by Wenreco. But we want them to get onto the grid. There is a line going towards now Pakwach. It is moving towards Arua. And the distribution network is now at 59,038 kilometers. It covers, this is what UMEME does, what UEDCL does, what the former UEB did, and what the Rural Electrification Agency did. It's now a program under the ministry, it's a department under the ministry, but it's going to continue laying the distribution networks to different parts of the country. At the moment, we have 19% of the population connected to power. The number is still low. Why is it low? People, you know, it is expensive to put in place these lines. It's quite expensive. For you to understand the cost is when you try to do what we call self-funding, when you're trying to connect your own power to your house, and you're going through what we call a self-funding system. It is going to cost you about 720,000 to acquire the meter, and just that solido, the line from the pole, which is in your compound to your house. So if it is 720,000, if you add on a few, you know, the inspection, it's approximately 800,000. That short distance would cost you that. How about kilometers of these, you know, with the poles and the conductors? Lately we are using the conductors that are insulated, and in some places in urban areas we want to do underground cables because the overhead cables are out of fashion, and you know, they are not sustainable. When you do an underground cable, even vandalism, you know, it becomes harder because it requires actual digging. Maybe the vandal may not even know exactly where, you know, the line is. But when it's overhead, they can easily see it. They know we can cut here, and take. So, but investing in an underground cabling system is almost 3 times the cost of doing an overhead. But that's where, that's the direction, that's where we should be looking, because it's more sustainable. We are looking to have the country connected. We want universal access to power. All the 10.4 million households in Uganda, we want them connected by 2030. That is our dream. So we are working towards that. And only these vandals take us backwards because they delay the projects, they make the projects expensive, and you know, they distort the planning.
that brings me to the point of rural electrification. How is it going, and has anything changed when it comes to that program?
I want to say nothing much has changed, apart from the disruptions that came from COVID. The 2 years we lost to COVID, much of the work stalled a bit, but also the process of getting the agency mainstreamed into the ministry. Of course, it's that process, the transition slows down project implementation, because when people have to reapply for their jobs, some people start looking outside. We know that some people got jobs elsewhere, so you have to look around for new people to put into the system, and some people who were not good enough for the jobs didn't make it back. But we are going to get back to work. Luckily, we have some new funding from the World Bank, $600+ million into the electricity access scale-up project, which is commencing. Recruitments have been happening. Very soon, the officers will get to work before the close of this year, and we want Ugandans to ask for power. If you're in an area which is not powered, you write to your minister, or you can write through your area MP, through your district leader. Some people may say, how am I going to access the minister? It is the reason you have leaders in your area. So utilize your leader, write a petition that we are here, we are so many people, we don't have power. Government primarily is going to take power to every district, every sub-county. At least the sub-counties and the district headquarters have to be with power. So the rest of the people have to apply for the power. It will be picked from there to their homes, or to where they want to utilize the power. We are also putting the power in industrial parks in different parts of the country. Industrial parks, we are connecting hospitals, health facilities, and key installations. We have investors that have picked interest in different areas. We make sure those areas are connected. They are priority, plus the district centers, sub-counties. So a Ugandan out there should just go through your leader and ask the ministry to bring power. So with the resources that we have, we should be able to connect so many people in the coming years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon, for coming on Issues at Hand today, and for discussing the issue of vandalism as well as accessibility to power. And it's our call as family members here on Family TV. We must be vigilant to ensure that no one is tampering with any infrastructure that has to do with electricity. It's upon us. We need to fight this vice together with the ministry, with police, with security agencies, to ensure that our usage of electricity is not hampered. Thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand this morning. Have a blessed day. It is time for the coffee break.